Hello and welcome to all the librarians joining us today from across the country, far and wide. I'm Lizette Serrano. Happy Pride. I want to make sure we show our love and support to the LGBTQIA plus community all month long, but also all year long. Also, happy ALA. I'm so happy to be here with you all in this Hollywood Squares, joined by this fantastic array of writers and bookmakers. We are so grateful that so many of you chose to spend this time with us. We were blown away by the large number of people who RSVP'd, and we're thankful for those of you who said some really insightful and fun questions for our authors. So stay tuned because a few of those amazing questions will be answered later in the show. Now, everyone, say hello and welcome my wonderful colleague and my lovely co-host, Emily Heddleson.
Hi, everybody. I wish I were with you in person, but this is second best. It's wonderful to have this opportunity to connect with you and share some amazing books. Some of you who RSVP'd early got a special prize pack, a special giveaway package. So if you haven't opened it already, open it up. You've got all of these books and a few more special gifts included. So thank you for RSVPing, and I can't wait to share these books and these authors with you.
I'm so honored and thrilled to introduce author Varian Johnson. We all know he won a Coretta Scott King honor and a Boston Globe Hornbook honor for his most recent novel, The Parker Inheritance. And a shout out to the amazing discussion guide we just created, Parker Inheritance, so make sure you check that out. He's also written many other books, including The Great Green Heist and To Catch a Cheat. With his new book, Playing the Cards You Dealt, he delves into some topics that will be familiar with readers of The Park Inheritance: family legacy, intergenerational relationships, secrets and truths, but also addresses toxic masculinity and still manages to sprinkle in his signature humor and a connection with the card game Spades. Hi, Varian.
Hi, Lizette.
There are so many incredible facets to this book. How did they emerge and transform as Anthony's story took shape?
Thanks so much for the introduction, Lizette. And hello, ALA friends. I'm so glad to be speaking to you today. I'm actually calling you from my hometown of Florence, South Carolina. I'm sitting in my grandparents' dining room, and the entire neighborhood is filled with long-standing stores and businesses, historic schools, friends and family. And maybe that's fitting because, Lizette, as you alluded to, so much of Playing the Cards You're Dealt was shaped by and inspired by intergenerational relationships. That's really what pulled it all together for me. But backing up, Playing the Cards You're Dealt is about 10-year-old Anthony Ant Joplin as he eagerly prepares for the Big Spades tournament that takes place every year in their community. Winning the tournament is a big-time Joplin man tradition, with Ant's brother, father, and grandfather winning before him. But now that it's Ant's turn to shine, poor Ant, and really his father, well, both of them don't really know if Ant's up to the task. Things go from bad to worse when Ant's best friend and usual card partner is grounded and barred from playing in the tournament. Ant ends up with a new partner, a girl named Shirley, and she might just be more of a card hustler than Ant is. But as Ant tries to get ready for the tournament, to uphold that Joplin man tradition that his father is always quick to brag about, Ant starts to notice that his father seems a little distracted. It turns out his dad's playing a whole nother type of game, one full of dark secrets that threaten to tear Ant's family apart. You know, it took a while for Playing the Cards You Dealt to take shape. With many of my other books, I start with a plot or characters first. Certainly that was the case with The Parker Inheritance. But for this book, I really lean in the setting. And more so, I kind of mind my own backstory. I grew up in a close-knit, predominantly Black community where everyone looked out for each other, whether you wanted them to or not. I wanted to capture that feeling in this book. From the teachers and school administrators knowing all your business because they grew up with your parents, to how all the senior citizens will always tell us kids to stop listening in on grown folks' business. I wanted to capture the joy of goofing off with my friends, or running down the block, trying to get home before it's dark, waving at anyone and everyone sitting on their front porches, or tinkering with their cars in their driveways. I wanted to reflect the experience of being a Black kid, being allowed to be a child, instead of being portrayed like the adult that so many people expect them to be. And of course, the book was also inspired by spades, my love for spades. It's a really popular trick-winning game. It's popular in a number of Black communities, but you gotta understand, growing up in my neighborhood, the goal wasn't to just win at spades. It was how you won. There's a sophistication that comes with the game. It's got its own vernacular, its own cadence. You can't pluck down a card just any old way. You got to play with style, swagger, confidence. I love that, and I wanted to honor it in book form. And finally, playing cards to dealt was inspired by my father. Like Aunt and his father, my dad taught me and my brother how to play spades when we were younger. Of course, Dad was also always more than happy to engage in a little friendly trash talking as he taught us the game. My dad passed away recently, but I'll always cherish that he taught me that the game of life wasn't just about the cards you're dealt, but it was also about how you played those cards and who you played with that really determined if you win or if you lose. So, thank you all for listening. I hope y'all enjoy playing the cards you're dealt. I think the book's one of my funniest novels, but also one of my most moving. It showcases the joy in my lived experience, while also acknowledging that there's still many problems that face young men, including toxic masculinity and addiction. And paraphrasing Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, I hope that Playing the Cards You're Dealt can serve as a mirror, a window, or a sliding glass door to all readers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Varian. That was amazing. And yes, I hope that all of our readers pick this book up. I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, Candace Fleming. Candace is new to the Scholastic Focus list, but with over 20 titles, I'm sure she's already an author of your heart. I fell in love with her Boston Globe Horn book and Los Angeles Times Book Prize winning The Family Romanov, but we have an entirely new book with her for a middle grade audience. With The Curse of the Mummy, Uncovering Tutankhamun's Tomb, Candace works her fact-finding magic on the subject of King Tutankhamun, deconstructing and reconstructing our ideas and preconceptions about the story of this discovery and its legacy on our culture and on the world.
You know, I actually thought I knew the story of Howard Carter and the reopening of King Tutankhamun's tomb when I began this project. I came to know even more after months of digging around in that vast material at Oxford University. There's Carter's letters and his diaries, his unpublished autobiography is there. Hundreds of archival photographs are also housed at Oxford. But then I went to Egypt, and I went to the Valley of the Kings, to King Tutankhamun's tomb, and being there, literally stepping into history, changed everything I thought I knew about that story. Landscapes speak, and temples and tombs, they really do hold memories. And I gained this clear understanding of ancient Egypt's historical periods, and I even learned to read a little bit of hieroglyphs. But more importantly, I discovered how cool and silent it is inside of a tomb, and how the rock in the valley crunches beneath your feet, and how pink the sunset and October sunset is as it reflects on the Nile. I also climbed this summit that followed a path that for thousands of years, ancient Egyptians had been taking. And I was able to stand high and look across the vast countryside where I could clearly see that line between this cultivated land and the barren desert. And for the first time, I really understood why ancient Egyptians believed that that was the boundary between the living and the world of the living and the world of the dead. And it's going to be really hard for me to explain. In fact, I find it impossible to write, or I can't find the right words for it. But while I was there, it was as if all of my senses were engaged, and my imagination too, which I think is important to write really good nonfiction. You have to imagine yourself back into the past. And I certainly did when I was in Egypt. because when I finally came face to face with King Tut, I was completely overwhelmed. I had this sudden, inexplicable sadness, and I actually stood there in the tomb and wept. And that emotion, that sadness and something more, which was born of my research, changed how I wrote the story. It's still this exciting story of discovery and buried treasure. It's still that story that we all know. But I also included parts of the story that are less often told, questions that deserve to be answered for young readers of the 21st century. Why were rich white men from Western countries basically allowed to treasure hunt in Egypt? Why were they allowed to literally appropriate the country's treasures? And why didn't the Egyptian people have any say in what was going on? I think it's really imperative that we question our past, that we re-examine and reconsider it in the light of new understandings. After all, I believe that memory is a powerful force in the way that society evolves. And so I thought it was important to pose those questions to young readers. The book also asks readers to consider Tutankhamun as a once living, breathing teenager rather than just an archaeological artifact. He was a human being who sacrificed so much, his tomb goods, his mortal remains, in the name of science and knowledge. And now I'm worried that I'm making this book sound boring, because it's not. It's narrative nonfiction, which of course you guys know is 100% true. It's still fast paced. It's still an edge of your seat story. It's still that story you know, and it is fun, even more fun. Woven throughout the discovery story is the story of the mummy's curse. Eerie tales of seances that Lord Carnarvon actually held in his castle, and stories about mummified cats that supposedly took revenge on those treasure hunters. It was said that there was this mummy board at the British Museum that caused bad luck, and that Anubis actually crept out of King Tut's tomb to protect it and wreak havoc on anybody who went inside. So cool. It was also said, of course, that there was a string of ghostly sightings and accidental or unexplained accidents and mysterious deaths that were also due to the curse of the mummy. Is it true? I'm going to end with this quote from my elementary school librarian, Miss Snyder, who used to drive me absolutely crazy because she'd book talk a book. She'd recommend it. She'd tell you the most exciting part, and then she'd say, "You'll have to read the book to find out." And so, my friends, I'm going to say to you, Curse of the Mummy, you'll have to read the book to find out. Thanks so much.
Candace, that was lovely. And I love, like, even though I read the book, I'm like, oh, I want to go back and reread it. I'm always excited to roll out the red carpet for a debut author for Scholastic. And also, this is her first ALA. Everyone, welcome Malia Siddiqui. Hi, Maleeha. Baraka Beats is a carefully crafted story about friendship, family, religion, and identity that resonate with readers. Nimra is a second-generation Pakistani American Muslim who is just starting middle school. And throughout the story, there's a strong message about self-identity, figuring out who you want to be, and making choices that reflect who you will choose to be. I love this book so much.
My dream for readers, particularly young readers, as Nimra's story connects with them in the world, is to come away from the book feeling empowered, feeling proud of who they are, and having more empathy for people who are different from them. Nimra deals with two sides of different in Baraka Beats. One side being her best friend who is not Muslim, and a new group of kids that she meets at her new school who are Muslim like she is, but practice a little bit differently. And that puts her in a bit of a bind. Backing up, Baraka Beats is about 12-year-old Muslim girl Nimra Sharif, who transfers to public school for the first time after spending her whole life in Islamic school. Nimra figures she can take on just about anything as long as she has Jenna, her best friend who already goes to public school. But unfortunately, Jenna starts giving hijab-wearing Nimra the cold shoulder around the other kids. So desperate to fit in and get back in Jenna's good graces, Nimra accepts an unlikely invitation to join the school's popular 8th grade boy band, Baraka Beats. Cue the shenanigans as Nimra navigates friendships old and new, family drama, and her own faith in an effort to find her place at her new school. So Baraka Beats started out as a simple concept about a Muslim girl joining a boy band and grappling with her faith as a result, because the book touches on a unique topic. And that's how Muslims choose to engage with music based on their personal interpretations of religious teachings. Some Muslims believe music is entirely forbidden, while others do not. And others still walk somewhere in the middle. Nimra and her family's outlook on this is a side that I've never seen positively portrayed in books, and it's one that I plucked directly from my own upbringing. I had to dig up I had to dig up a lot of preteen angst to write this book, and it was a trip combining these emotions with modern preteen lives. Good thing I have a big family, and there are plenty of kids in the middle grade reading range that I could bounce questions off of. Interestingly, the idea behind Baraka Beats did not start out as a children's book. It was initially like a YA adult crossover, but the more I delved into the story and Nimra's character arc and her voice became more prominent in my head, the more I started to realize that her journey best aligned and resonated with the middle grade age group. Plus, my own boy band obsession was at its height when I was in middle school myself. And Baraka Beats also came about due to a narrative gap that I was seeing in children's publishing. While the diversity push has introduced so many wonderful stories into the world in recent years, it still felt like many were one-sided, and they weren't showing the Muslim kids who love their faith and are proud of their Islamic identity and it being evident on the page. And that was really hard for me to ignore because I know those kids are out there and I felt like they were being overlooked. I wrote this book because I wanted to write a story with a practicing Muslim kid that represented me and my experiences growing up in the US. I want one of the big takeaways from Baraka Beats for young readers, as well as parents and educators, to be that one's faith can be uplifting and motivate people to live their best authentic lives while also respecting other people's opinions and boundaries. Faith doesn't always diminish down generations. Sometimes it actually becomes stronger. There are Muslim kids like Nimra out there. They're ones that are young who love their faith and who are second or third generation. And I wanted them to be seen and to be heard. And I hope Baraka Beats gives them that little boost of confidence to be proud of who they are, because I know how hard it is, especially right now, as Lizette said earlier, to make choices that reflect who you want and choose to be. It was important for me to tell a story of a kid that loved her faith and faced a lot of the same challenges that today's Muslim kids face. Not just microaggression, but also how to navigate the sometimes awkwardness of meeting other Muslims that don't hold the same opinions as you. I don't want readers or writers to feel like they have to be boxed in when it comes to Muslim representation or to feel like they have to cater to the Western perspective. I hope Baraka Beats opens doors for more writers to speak their truth and tell their stories. With that, I hope you go out into the world and put Baraka Beats into the hands of all readers, because being able to share and learn a different perspective is just as important as being able to see yourself in a story. And I want to say thank you to all of the wonderful librarians for being such huge advocates for kids' literature and the diversity within our world. The library was the first place that I connected with books as a reluctant reader in elementary school. So it's such an honor to be sharing Baraka Beats with the people who make discovering stories possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Malia. Yes. I hope all those things too. And I think readers and librarians are going to find that in your book. I'm so excited to share that with all of you, all of our attendees, all of our wonderful librarians across the country, getting this book into the hands of young readers. And now, Jay Coles. Jay joined Scholastic on the heels of his 2018 title, Tyler Johnson Was Here, with a brand new young adult title coming this fall, Things We Couldn't Say. This beautiful book is heartbreaking and uplifting at the same time. It addresses complicated family issues, but it also shares the experience of crushes and the line between friendship and romance. In this book, Jay addresses forgiveness, love in its many incarnations, and choices that we have to make. Jay, welcome. How did you navigate all of these complex and intersecting identities and relationships?
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me here. First of all, that's a wonderful question. I'm so grateful to be able to talk to librarians and educators, and I hadn't really thought about that question until just now, but yeah, I think I don't know, when I think about like writing complex and intersecting identities and relationships, it almost just felt so like natural to me to write about the complications and the different dynamics of identities and relationships, in families and in friendships and in a romantic sense as well, because I feel like in my personal life I have a lot of experience with that, and relationships, specifically real relationships, because I like to distinguish the two between relationships and real relationships, are complex and complicated because people are, like every single one of us, are complicated. And I was thinking in particular related to like our Black youth, right? And Black kids who are readers, or Black kids just in general, like in the world, deserve to see themselves in books that show them as complex and human, and to show their families as complex and deeply human as well. I think more often than not, like in the media or just in a lot of the books that I read as a kid, I saw how a lot of Black characters were painted as like stereotypes, as particular kinds of people. But I wanted to highlight that Black kids, the experiences of relationships and within the Black community, we're more than just the issues that follow us, or more than just the hurt and the trauma that we so explicitly see in the media. I was thinking like, yeah, Black kids are like nerds, and they love playlists, and they hang out with friends after school, and they go to work, they have jobs. And sometimes I know for me, like growing up, I had to kind of like take care of my younger siblings as my parents like worked multiple jobs. And so that provided like an interesting dynamic in my family for me. But I hadn't ever read a book similar to that, like as a kid, that kind of reflected my experience. And so I wanted to show, like in Things We Couldn't Say, how like the Black community or Black kids, like we're not this monolith. There are so many complexities and intersections within the Black community. And I wanted to write that explicitly in Things We Couldn't Say. Specifically, one dynamic that I write about is the Black queer experience for Giovanni, who's the main character of Things We Couldn't Say, and how he has to navigate that in rural Indiana, and which is where I grew up. And so I have like a personal connection there. I wanted to write about the experience of and the intersection of Blackness and queerness in Indiana, but also in a family that was like super religious, and a community that might have had lots of things to say about that. And so I think James Baldwin too kind of like pioneered that long ago. But he writes so beautifully about the intersection of Blackness and queerness, specifically in his book Giovanni's Room, which is definitely an inspiration for Things We Couldn't Say. And so I wanted to write just about how like Giovanni, despite the circumstances of his family, being super religious, despite the complications of living in Indiana, where he feels kind of like unable to be himself, really unable to kind of like be authentically who he is and who he's meant to be, kind of like go on this journey of experiencing and navigating love and relationships in all its many forms. So, I mean, we see throughout the book that Gio begins to even doubt if love and joy is even meant for him because of the circumstances and the cards that he's been dealt. Despite like a mother who like abandons him when he's a little boy, despite his preacher father who doesn't really accept him or seem to care all that much about spending time with him even, Gio learns to pursue joy and love, family love and friend love and romantic love. And so, yeah, my goal and my desire in writing this book and my passion even is that like librarians and educators and all of us, we're able to pick up this book for people in our lives who might feel like joy isn't in the cards they've been dealt, right? Or love isn't meant for them, and hand them the story as a beacon of hope, that they deserve to pursue the joys and the love that they deserve, because it's meant for them too. So yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the time that I get to spend with you, talk about Things We Couldn't Say.
Jay, that was wonderful. I would say personally for me, what you're sharing about, despite our differences, our upbringing, where we come from, we can always persevere and hopefully find the joy and the hope. And your novel knocks it out of the park. I mean, I got that imprint and many others of what you just shared. So thank you for showcasing that beautiful joy and hope in this novel. Everyone, guess who's back on the book scene? I'm introducing Brian Selznick. As we all know, he's a award-winning creator of The Adventure of Hugo Cabret and Wonderstruck, as well as so many other beloved, innovative, groundbreaking titles. With Kaleidoscope, Brian has created yet another unique reading experience and masterpiece. Time and space, memory, dreams, fantastical adventures, philosophical musings, and internal connections. There are so many elements to this story, and like a kaleidoscope itself, the book reshapes these elements into something greater than its parts. You need to meet it on its own terms. I love David Levithan, who is the publisher of this book, has says, don't read it for plot. Read it for love, read it for loss, read it for grief, and most of all, read it for hope. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Lizette.
How did your own personal experiences shape this book and its themes and through your creative process?
Oh, well, thanks, Lizette. And first, I just want to say that I'm so honored to be a part of this event, and I'm so excited to read all of these books. They sound extraordinary, and I'm so proud that my book is among these titles. And before I answer your question, I also just want to say hello to the librarians. It's so nice to be talking to my people. I'm realizing now that librarians should have been put in charge of everything when the pandemic began. You're trusted voices in the community. You know how to find facts and get them out as quickly as possible. You're the best at sharing stories and offering comfort, and you can keep people quiet when needed. So I just want to say I'm thrilled to be speaking with you. And I now would like to answer your question, Lizette. You asked me how my personal experiences shaped this book and its themes and through my creative process. And basically, the answer is this. The book is 100% fiction. There are giants and angels. There's a doll that goes to Antarctica. There's a talking dragon and ghosts. But its themes and inspirations are completely nonfiction. For the first 3 months of the pandemic, I was stuck in New York while my husband was stuck in California. And I was so freaked out, I couldn't work on anything. Just on my couch for a lot of the beginning of that. But across the street from me, a family was putting up drawings their child had done in the window. And one day the family put up a sign their child had made, which said, "Let's make art." And I thought that was pretty good advice. And the art I found that I wanted to make, though, wasn't like the art you've seen in my books. I started making these strange abstract images, just sort of trusting my gut and eventually painting what I wanted to paint. And eventually I painted this red painting, this yellow painting, and I made this blue painting. And when I made those 3 paintings, I then created this rainbow colored painting, which was almost like my version of the rainbows that were appearing in all the windows at the beginning of the pandemic. And after I made those 4 paintings, I stopped, and it was like I made all the art I needed to make at that moment. And that's when I finally returned to a book that I'd been working on for about 5 years that I'd been having trouble with. And I just tore the whole thing apart. I shattered it and I put the pieces back together. And that's what the abstract art had been teaching me. I didn't know it at the time, but it had been teaching me how not to be afraid and how to trust my instincts, which is what I most needed to learn at that moment. And out of the shards, I created 24 stories that are filled with keys and doors, walls, shipwrecks, grief, survival, hope, and love. The original setting of the book, a house in Cornwall, England, called Port Eliot, can still be seen in a few of the stories. There's a friend named James who remains as well, as does an unnamed first-person narrator, like Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. And this book is not a conventional narrative with an answer. This book is more like an investigation. It's really a collaboration between you, the reader, and me. It's really for us in so many ways. I wrote these stories to help me through the loneliness and the fear of the pandemic, and everything that I was feeling, I know was being felt by everybody at that time. And I'm happy to share with you that there is in fact a story in Kaleidoscope called The Library. And it's about a shipwrecked boy who washes up on a mysterious island because that's how I felt at the time, alone in New York, like a shipwrecked boy in an island. And the narrator of this story is a person with these huge white wings. We're never sure if it's an angel or some other sort of being, but the creature finds the boy and brings him to their house at the top of a mountain. And hoping to comfort the distraught child, the narrator invites the boy into their library. And the narrator says, "The boy looked around the room. There were thousands of books on shelves that lined the walls from floor to ceiling. 'My library,' I said. 'You can read whatever you want. Think of it as home.'" So thank you, librarians, for inviting us in. And even when we couldn't leave our houses, you figured out ways to get us the right books and to remind us that libraries are more than physical places. They're an idea that feels like home. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. This really has been an extraordinary program of hearing from all of you authors about what your books encompass, because these books encompass the world. They really have shown us an extraordinary range of different identities. So many of these books touch on family, love, the driving passions that we have that bring us to the process of story, and also exploring our place in the world. So thank you. We're so excited. As Lizette mentioned before, we have some wonderful questions that have come in. I wish we could ask all of them. We can't, because that would take 3 hours. And we love spending time with you, but we'll look forward to spending that time in person. So to get to these questions, the first one I want to ask of the authors: what was your writing process like? Was there a particular challenge that presented itself, or a surprise that sparked a turning point in your story?
I think, I talked about the turning point of the story for The Curse of the Mummy. So let me talk a little bit about my writing process, because I know that it's a little unusual. And I wish I was in my office instead of where I'm at today. And I would show you my writing process. I would actually hold it up, because I actually write everything by hand with a big pen. I do have one here, and wide line loose leaf paper. I write everything: novels, long pieces of nonfiction, picture books, everything gets written that way, at least the first draft. And the reason I do that is because for me, it's play. I don't have to worry about, if I'm old, right? So I started writing when I was 12, I think, isn't that right, Varian? And yeah. And so if I put it on the screen, I see it, I think it's permanent. So if I write with wide line loose leaf paper and a big pen, it smells like writing, because the smell of the Bic, does this thing for me in my head. And I can move my hand across that wide line piece of paper. I can crunch it up. I can throw it away. It's play. It's not precious. And I also love, at the end of the day, especially when I'm writing that tough first draft, is that I can hold up my hand, and Bic pen is so cheap, it leaks. So I hold up my pen, and my whole hand is blue, and I can go around to my friends, neighbors, family, and say, "Look, I've written today." So that's my process. It's chaotic, messy, and old school.
I'm going to jump in next. I don't write everything in first draft like Candace, but I do have a notebook, and I write lots of ideas down in the notebook. And usually I do all of my brainstorming in a notebook first, and then I start typing up things on the computer. But also, nothing is sacred in those first drafts, and things move around and they change. And I'm often stumbling through a story, kind of finding the thing that it's about, or the thing that I find most interesting to kind of propel me through, and then revise after that. Revision is such a big part of the process. Every book I write goes through multiple revisions. Planes of Cargo Dealt went through probably about 6 before my editor first saw it, and then number of revisions after that. And every book is different, but part of it is just knowing that the book's going to be messy at first, and that's okay. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. And it gets better the more you chip away and work on it.
Do you have big gaps in your work too, Varian?
Oh,
Like you make a big thing, I know there's something here, but I don't know what yet. I'll get back to it.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep, yep.
that makes me feel less crazy. Thank you.
Well, we all have our process and it changes. But I'm curious how our Ricky does.
Yeah.
You know, how is it like writing a novel and having it published for the first time and kind of getting into it?
I actually envy the two of you because I can't leave gaps in my manuscript. That drives me crazy because I'm a perfectionist and I always have to write everything from the beginning to the end, even if I know it's going to end up getting trashed. So that's kind of like what I did for Barca Beats. I had to plan out at least all of my major story beats, and then from there I wrote it from beginning to end. But my major hiccup with this manuscript was that I hit a scene that was so personal, and it just hit so close to home that I had to walk away from the book. And for the longest, for weeks, I actually thought I wasn't going to finish it because I couldn't get myself through that scene. And then I gave it to a friend to read, and she was like, she's like, well, why'd you stop here? Why didn't you keep going? And I was like, and I told her, I was like, I can't do it. It's too much for me. And that's when I realized that, Barca Beats is this joyful story. And a lot of it is fiction. I did not join a boy band in middle school, I promise you. But a lot of it is drawn from my own personal experiences. And that's when I couldn't get past that certain scene. That's when I realized how important it was to me to finish this book and how important it would be to other Muslim kids to read something like this. So that was my major hiccup with this book. And once I got past that scene, which is not even in the middle of the book anymore, it happens right before the climax. So, but I'm glad that it stayed in, and I'm glad I got myself through it.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And you can see us all nodding because we've all had, it seems as if we've all had that moment as well, where it feels like, oh, this is the part that's too painful to look at. But then that often becomes the reason the book exists. Mm-hmm. And so, and to hear you talk about this with discovering this and getting through it on your very first book is really extraordinary. And I will just quickly say that the process that I go through normally is a very different one, in that my books like Hugo and Wonderstruck and the Marvels all took about 3 years to write and illustrate, and it was very plot oriented, and it was, and I think if I wasn't able to leave those gaps, like the fact that you don't leave gaps, Maleeha, is also astonishing to me. It's for me, it's 3 years of trying to fill in all the gaps because it's mostly gaps. And then that moment comes, the pain, the center, and then it feels like everything then fills itself in a way. Mm-hmm. And Kaleidoscope, I was saying briefly in my talk that it was starting with a ripping apart of something that already existed. And then it was like this feverish kind of rush to write these stories. And they first began as separate stories about things that I really love and was fascinated by and that I wanted to write about. And then it was only later that the whole thing was recrafted into a novel with my editor, David Levithan. And but it was a very different process. And I think I made the entire book of Kaleidoscope wrote all of the stories in about 7 or 8 months, which was very, very unusual. And And Jay, what about you?
Yeah, I think similarly to you, Brian, I think my writing process for Things We Couldn't Say was a lot different than my debut. Tyler Johnson Was Here. For that one, I was very much I'm planning and I'm plotting out the story, and I would write sticky notes. I'm the most disorganized kind of plotter. So I write sticky notes and I would just stick them to my wall, just slap them there. I'm like, okay, this is going to go here. This is going to go here, kind of all there. But for Things We Couldn't Say, I just kind of was I'm just going to go in. I'm just going to dive in. I'm going to let these characters kind of take me on this journey, and try to distance myself as much as I could from the story and the events that was going on. But surprisingly, not surprisingly, that didn't happen. I ended up kind of writing about a lot of my childhood and teenage experiences in the book. And I mean, the book is set in the high school that I went to. So it got really, really personal, really, really fast. But I do think one hiccup in writing this book was like writing it over the last like year or so. Obviously we had this global pandemic, which Brian, you were mentioning earlier, like the loneliness and like the really, really hard feelings of grief that came with the pandemic. Or I was feeling like that super intensely as I was writing this book, where these characters are like not living in a pandemic and they're, you know, pursuing joy and love. And I'm like, gosh, I feel super lonely and super sad and depressed and anxious. And so there were multiple times where I had to step away from writing the story and then come back at a later point. But it definitely was like a really interesting journey. But I'm really, really proud and happy and excited for the finished and final product of Things We Couldn't Say. And I do think like moving forward, my writing process will probably be more of like the pantsit, just because I feel like I enjoy that way more than the plotting. So, yeah.
It's really interesting hearing all these answers, and definitely like with how the pandemic has sort of shaped what we've done. And you know, we're here on a screen, like this is affecting every single facet of our lives. And I know with the last answer and through presentations, some of you have sort of answered this next question already. But I just love the librarian who sent this one in, just how they put it, because it really, this pandemic really has influenced all of us in many different ways. And certainly we're addressing that with students as everybody's going back into real life, in-person life. So a question for you creators: did your creativity, writing, illustrating, any other sort of form of creativity, did that help you during the pandemic? Did your creativity grow because of it? And how did you keep motivated during the creation process, during this difficult time?
I know 2020 with the pandemic and everything, I know it was super, super difficult for so many people. We lost a lot of people, a lot of tragedies happened, people lost their jobs. So many people were affected. So I feel a little bit embarrassed to say that 2020 was a really good year for me personally. A lot of good things happened for me in 2020 as a result of being able to be at home with my family and working from home. So it helped my creativity to actually flourish because I had more time. I wasn't sitting in a car 3 hours a day commuting to work. My commute was very long, so I'm glad I work from home now. It helped me spend time with my daughter and my husband and my in-laws, and it gave me a lot of time to focus on my story. And at that point, I was actually doing developmental edits with my wonderful editor Emily Seif. And yeah, it's the pandemic in a way was a blessing in disguise, as they say, for me personally. I got a lot more thinking space, thinking time, a lot more peace and quiet. And I think it really helped me develop my writing process a little bit more.
I can go next. I feel like I am the exact opposite of Maleeha.
Sorry, I feel so weird saying that.
No, you're good. I feel like for me, the pandemic really sucked out a lot of my creativity. I found it a lot more distracting because I was like, always on social media looking at like, what's the, the death toll, all this kind of thing. And it's like super depressing, obviously, but that was kind of how like my brain was working throughout a lot of the pandemic. But I mean, it was also like not just this pandemic, but there was a lot of like really intense racial things going on in our country. That was happening simultaneously that was like incredibly distracting as well. And so I felt like because I'm so like my brain and my heart is so like justice oriented, I feel like I was just kind of like, I am disengaging from writing. I'm going to miss whatever deadlines I have, unfortunately. Sorry, David. And I'm going to just like grieve. And I feel like I spent like this last year and a half probably like grieving probably every day and shedding a lot of tears and distancing myself from my writing and being behind. So that's been really, really sad and unfortunate. But I'm happy, you know, that now we have vaccines and now, you know, people are getting vaccinated and I'm able to see like kind of like a beacon of light, like ahead where I can kind of start to come out of this kind of like pit where I've kind of like distanced myself from my writing during this pandemic. So I don't have like a super like neat bow of like how to like wrap up that question or the answer, but sorry, I got really, really dark and depressing, but that's my answer.
Which is interesting because writing became my refuge. It was a place for me to go where I didn't have to think about, because it felt like all of my hours outside of my office were spent with thinking, grieving, worrying. And so for me, I'd go to my office and shut the door, and it really was like a refuge. I would disappear for a little bit. And so that's what writing became. What I wrote, I can't tell you if it's any good, but I wrote a lot.
I'm so glad that folks have had, as with all things, we all have different ways that we respond to the world. And sometimes that ebbs and flows and changes. I have 2 kids in middle school. And I wish in elementary school. We got a long way to go to middle school and high school. 2 kids in elementary school, and they did virtual school all at home. And so a lot of my day got shifted to being in a house by myself and now being a house full of people and now kind of being the primary one helping them through their schooling. So my writing schedule shifted, and it has suffered. Like I had to rethink about how I was writing things. But even then, like I think like my father passed away just 2 months ago, right? And that has totally changed my perception of writing. And it's interesting, like I think about how bad 2020 is, and like, oh, 2021 has been kind of bad too. But I am glad that we're kind of coming out of it, and that even in these tough times, even if it's slowly, like Jay mentioned, it's just the anthology and it's been hard. I do think it can be hard for some of us, but that we could eventually, as things hopefully get better, we can kind of crawl our way out of it. And I hope that our readers can kind of feel that way too, that they can find books that either gives them a way to process what's happening in the world, either through that specific lens or another lens, or offers an escape, whatever the case. I think books are pivotal for that.
Yeah. And I think listening to everybody talk, people hearing us speak about this process and what we've all been through will identify with all of us in some fashion. There will be people who have shut down. There will be people who found a golden lining. There will be people who have had some combination of all of those things. And I think just being able to remind people that there was no right way to ride out what we've been experiencing, right? Like whatever you're suffering, whatever you're dealing with, like it's okay, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and like I started with like paralysis, like it was paralysis. And you know, and then for me, like, I didn't know why I was making the things I was making. Like, I didn't know why I was making these weird paintings. And I also did like several other super weird, I made like 58 postcards that I had, like that I've been collecting for like 30 years for no reason. Suddenly I was like cutting shapes into them. And I made this whole, I literally would wake up in the morning. I would just feel compelled to cut holes into postcards. And I did it all day, every day for weeks until I ran out of postcards. And then it was, and again, like it was a sense of being driven by what it is we need, what it is we need, right? And sometimes what we need is not doing the thing that we do. And it's there, it'll come back. I feel, I feel confident that, Jay will, you'll write again, like when you're ready, right? And there's no rush, so it's fine. I'm finding it very comforting to me to hear each of you speak about what this experience was like on the full spectrum.
I just want to take a deep breath because I'm also feeling very comforted in this space. Mm-hmm. What I want to say to each of you, during this time, the stories that you have created, Brian, example, after I read Kaleidoscope, we had a 3-hour phone conversation, you may recall, talking about the book, talking about the many things we spoke about today. Varian, Jay, Maleeha, you know how I feel about you guys. This is not our first event with you, leading to the publication of your books. And Candace, it's been an honor to have you here and join the Scholastic family. So your books are such a gift because, I know for me and many others out in the world, librarians who are getting, this increased access we've been giving during this pandemic to books, to you, that we've been able to provide to our viewers, but to the public, has been such a healing, cathartic experience. And you guys have provided that gift. And I just want to thank you for sharing those personal moments, because they're felt. And I just want to also give back to you that the gift that you have given us, and will give to so many more people in about 2.5 months when your book is out.
Wow.
And that's something to celebrate. That is something to celebrate, which we've been doing for a long time and will continue to do as your Scholastic family and our librarians here today in their own communities. So that leads us to our last question, which is kind of a speed round question and really fun, I think. One of the questions submitted wanted to know, so how would you like librarians to tell patrons about your books? You have 30 seconds. So I'm looking around the room, trying to read. I think Varian.
I'm trying to slide out the way. Okay, here's what I would say. I think all my books are about, they're about the Black experience. They're about the Black experience that I lived, and they can serve as mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. Primarily, I want kids of color to be able to see themselves in my books and see themselves doing the mundane and the amazing, whether it's something like the girls in Twins trying to make it through middle school, or like Candace in The Parker Inheritance trying to solve this big mystery, or it trying to be the biggest spades player, the best spades player in this community. It's all about seeing yourself in the world, what you are, what you could be. And then that works for those who are looking to learn more about my experience too, and to step into that experience. Again, the book being a mirror, a window, and a sliding glass door. All right, I'm going to kick it over to Jay because he's on my screen next.
Whoa. Okay. I am going to say that my brand, I feel like, is writing beautiful and vulnerable Black boys. And I love seeing Black boys on the covers of my books, just because to me, it really affirms Black boyhood and shows them as not the stereotypes that we see in the media. And so I hope that if someone ever sees my book at a library or a bookstore or picks it up, they can just see me affirm just the existence of Black boyhood in all its complications and in all its joys too. And so I feel like that's kind of my brand, and I kind of want to keep that up as I continue to write more and more books. So
Kaleidoscope for me is a really big leap into the unknown, but that's kind of what I've always tried to do with each new book. Hugo was a big leap for me from the books I've done. Wonderstruck from Hugo, The Marvels from Wonderstruck, and Kaleidoscope in a way goes even further. And it's so much about this moment without also literally being about this moment, and it's for the reader to engage with. And I think we've all had the experience, and Maleeha, you're going to have this experience where a reader comes up to you and says, I feel like you wrote this book for me. Yeah. And my answer is always, I did. I wrote it only for you. And so librarians, you're the gateway, you're the person who gives our books to them. So I hope that you are able to find each of these books and give them to the right people, which is what you do. And Maleeha?
Can I just say what Varian and Jay said? Same thing. Same thing, except I think the same way that they Varian and Jay said they write for the Black experience and the joys and the complexities of that. I write the same for the Muslim experience. Now I can only write it from the South Asian Muslim experience because that's what I am, and that's what I'm familiar with. But I feel like, now there's this shift where stories don't always have to be about trauma and grief and othering yourself. And now we can write stories where it's about joy and finding yourself. And that's why my main character is second generation, not first generation, because I figured second generation would be a bit more relatable to the middle grade age range right now. Because when I wrote Baraka Beats, I had my daughter in mind. I was thinking, like, if she was a little bit older, if she was a middle schooler, what would she experience? Candace.
I'm last. Okay. And some of you might say that one of these things is not like the other because you guys are all writing fiction and then there's me. But I'm going to say it is actually the same thing because I am a storyteller, not a fact teller. And I'm writing books that are supposed to be read with all those tools that fiction writers are using, that they'll be read like novels. So they're read for pleasure, not necessarily for reports. So if I was going to have a librarian hand my book, oh, what a joy to think of that, right? Oh, to have a librarian hand my book to a child, I would want him or her to say to that child, this is a really great story, and it's 100% true.
Before we close out, I wanted to give a special shout out to my colleagues in the Scholastic Audiobooks team who are currently working hard in the production of each of these Scholastic books will be available in audio. So thank you for that, and they'll be available soon for your listening pleasure. So thank you, librarians. Thank you. You're amazing. Your hard work, your advocacy, your magic at book matching, and everything you do, you're serving your communities. Thank you, authors. Thank you, Emily. Thank you for joining us. We know we'll see you in person really soon, but until then, take care and take care of each other. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
everyone.